Muslims are never going to be producers of thought because most of the Muslims are at the lowest mental class in this 8 billion people worth of community. That's the problem.
Well, that's a pretty big statement to make.
Very simple things to analyze. If you break up the mental class, you'll find out most of the Muslims fit in the bottom of the barrel. And I'm not saying because of the fact that we're Muslims.
Of course not. Okay.
Because of the fact we're not actually Muslims. That's the problem. There's this thing called the Usul and there's this thing called the Istidlal. You are at liberty to do all the Istidlal yourself. You don't need scholars for that. But Usul is going to come from Allah and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No human being after the Prophet sallallahu has right or the allowance to make Usul. Usul is done by Allah and the Prophet sallallahu. After that, everybody's going to do Istidlal. Now, what most Muslims are doing is they're drawing the same Istidlal because their daddies did it or their scholars did it. Their scholars of scholars did it. They're replicating the same Istidlal. That's called reproduction of thought. Quran says, "Ittakhadhu ahbarahum wa ruhbanahum arbabin min dunillah." They actually put their scholars as gods.
Sahil Adeem joins us on the path we choose to unpack big questions most people avoid about faith, identity, knowledge, and how we navigate life in a world full of noise. Known for blending insights from psychology, religion, and real-world observation, Sahil doesn't shy away from the topics other people tiptoe around. In this conversation, he challenges assumptions about schooling, belief, purpose, and what it means to live with intention and courage in the modern age. Sahil bhai, what path did you choose?
No, this is not a path I chose. Nobody chooses a path. Allah chooses a path for you. You just have to make sure you keep your eyes open and gaze widened so that you can know that you're doing a bigger benefit to the most amount of people you can. That's it. I was on this, everybody generally I know is on that very path. We are not I am not one of those guys who transited out of a path. My father was practically in this very zone, in a different flavor altogether. My brothers are. Let me just tell you why I do these podcasts, or anybody should be. I mean, everybody is doing some podcast. Mm-hmm. Everybody, they just don't use cameras or they don't use microphones, most of us. Some people use cameras or microphones because they need to get to a wider audience. Otherwise, everyone is messaging all the time. We're all messengers. Regardless of what is the message, everybody is messaging. Everybody is a messenger. The messenger of God is the person who uses the divine scripture, no matter who or where or when he or she is going to be the messenger of God. So this microphone is just an instrument to get a little more, or a lot more, what's the word? Transcendence. That's it. See, the more people you're going to talk to, the more they're going to talk to each other, if you group them together. And they're going to come up with an algorithm of their own based on the kind of knowledge that you've given them. So if you can teach them how to think through your words, they're going to come together and think of a totally different solution, which is going to be better than what you can fathom as a speaker or as a teacher or as a messenger. That's how knowledge structures work. People come together, they come up with new solutions. And they don't even know that they're going to come up with a solution. They just do it because when human brains come together, it's a totally different brain or different mind that actually constructs itself. It's a phenomenon. It's not written, well, it is written in biology, but it's not discovered yet. But it is so apparent when you look at the history of human evolution of thought. People came together and they came up with solutions of problems which was not even possible for the biggest scientists or philosophers or whatever. And during the course of time, the resonance of that question brought together, minds which were not apparently capable enough, but when they came together, They, out of thin air, they just pulled out solutions, because whatever I'm speaking right now, whatever I'm saying is giving you new ideas on runtime, right now, right here. That's how this echoing works. This echo has to be as the source of this sound has to be as loud as possible, so that we can get echoes coming from kids, from next generations or generations after those. The Prophet said that in his last sermon, that spread this word, this message of God to the people who are going to come in the next generations, to all over the world, so that they would understand this message better than you standing right here in front of me. This is the resonance of the effect of the resonance. And it's a little, I mean, there are no simpler words to choose, otherwise I would have. But resonance, I think, should suffice for a layman right now listening, that, okay, so what I'm saying is that there has to be a group of people. Yeah, that's why we need, people coming together. So a single man might not be able to interpret or come up with a totally different level of an IQ of the narrative I'm trying to build, or the solution I'm trying to give, or whatever statement I'm giving. Well, he or she can, depending on what kind of momentum he or she already has had from his life. But when it comes down to a group of people, the math is enormous. I mean, it's not just exponential. It's man to the power of men to the power of men to the power of men. Even though it's just 10 or 20 people that are going to start the snowball. And in the next generation, it's going to be gigantic, the way this IQ is going to accumulate. This is how it works. So the bigger the audience, the deeper the solutions, the more novel the solutions.
I like that perspective. Because I feel like a lot of us, we approach problems individually or independently. We want to solve the problem ourselves, but like what you've said, when you solve the problem as a group, you can get there much faster.
Yeah, and if you can get everybody to come in together, and you have no idea the math in this is overwhelming. I mean, it's just such a big loss that people just don't have this message of bringing people together, and I mean, this is just a loss. If only they knew of the possibilities that are right there, but we just don't want to, we don't work as a group. We're not trained to work as groups.
Why aren't we trained? Where did we go wrong specifically?
Well, we're hardwired into whatever philosophy that we're born into, and that philosophical underpinning is generally for survival. And even though a group would survive better than individuals, but we put a lot more elements of greed and selfishness. And selfishness will always prevail. I mean, it is the most attractive. It is the most attractive thing that human beings can actually transfer to each other, because it gives you the first mental response of, survival. It gives you that, instant gratification. That is very delicious. People actually would rather be selfish. Anyone would be, given the choice, unless you have a very grounded and overarching philosophy with a highly developed sense of a foresight to look at the future and see how evil this selfishness is and what kind of problems could be solved with selflessness. People generally are not ever going to be that smart as a group. Most of the people are not going to be smart. Plus, if you marry that with a lower mental class, You have no idea the kind of bomb you're making. I mean, this bomb is killing billions right now every day. We just don't see it because it takes a lot more insight to see the capability of this devastation, the bomb of selfishness coupled with this sense of achievement. It's beyond comprehension for a regular Joe. This is why lower mental class married to this instant sense of survival and gratification. I think that's as low as human beings have ever been able to stoop down to. I mean, whatever's going on right now. So if I ask you your last 5 prayers, your purpose line, where the bottom line that you draw, that line of compromise which you're never ever ever going to cross, you'll find out that line has never been drawn lower by any human being conscious enough to call himself a leader or a giver or a father or a decision maker. You're 24, right? So I think that you seriously need to look at where human beings at your age have been drawing those lines. If you ever have drawn a line, I don't know whether you have written down your purpose statement yet. And by your age, people were not just about to culminate most of whatever they wanted to achieve 1,000 years ago, 500 years, 200 years ago. But now you're designed to, you're hardwired into thinking that most of your life is ahead of you. That's the symptom of the disease I just told you. And you're probably going to die with this disease, God forbid.
But don't you think you have to be selfish to be selfless?
Say what now? Sorry?
Don't you think you have to be selfish to be selfless?
No, I heard you. I just don't know what you mean by that.
What I mean is, if I want to help the world, if I want to help my family or my community, don't I have to be in a state where I am strong enough to help myself? How can I speak to you? How can I have an intellectual conversation with you when I myself lack any intellect, when I myself lack emotional maturity or intelligence?
Well, how does that make you selfish?
I'm saying it doesn't make you selfish. I'm saying, I'm trying to figure out what your perspective on this is. Should I work on myself before I help others?
Okay, hold on. That's why I said, see, the bottom line. You're trying to help yourself for a purpose.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you're doing it for a purpose for others, then you're not selfish while developing yourself.
Okay.
So the fact that you think you're being selfish or you need to be means that you haven't really even thought about drawing that purpose and working towards it. And that's what I'm practically fighting against for the last 6, 7, 8 years now. Publicly.
I don't know if I agree with you on that. I feel like it may just be me questioning my intentions and just making sure that my intentions are in line with what I want to achieve in the world.
That's exactly what I'm saying. What is when you say intention, doesn't change the fact that you need a purpose, right?
Sure.
So what is this overarching purpose that you're actually spending your next 200 years worth of you getting married and producing babies and then producing babies? What is it?
My personal purpose, the overarching purpose, is to be an enabler for the people in Pakistan, to create as many jobs and opportunities as possible, to give them a better future that makes them self-reliant and that gives them the opportunity to actually help their families.
I lost you there when you said Pakistan. I'm sorry. So hold on. There's so much in there what you just said. So come back to the word intention. What's your intention?
To help my people.
Okay. So your purpose is to give them jobs.
Opportunities, yes.
Now why?
Because I have been given privilege my whole life, and with that privilege, I understand that there is a responsibility.
Okay, I'm going to ask you this. What do you mean by a job?
Something that they can provide risk with their family with.
Okay. So you're enabling them to have enough sustenance to do whatever they want to do. So you're the chef.
Sure.
You cook for them. So you don't really care whether where they come from, where they go after they eat.
Not necessarily, no.
Okay. Well, this is not a debate. This is just a podcast. Go on.
I'd love your perspective. I mean, the most dangerous
That's a
form
very
of
low
blindness.
purpose statement. Very low. That's what I said, mental class. If anyone asks me of what my actual bigger problem is, of whatever I'm trying to achieve, this was supposed to be an English podcast, right?
Yeah, you can mix it up.
Are you kidding me? I thought it was an English podcast. That's
It
why
is.
I'm
It
speaking
is English.
Okay.
If you need to.
No, it's right. I'm just, because there are words which I only know in English.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. So hold on. So see, the bigger problem with, if you read the history, you'll see from Nuh alayhi salam till our Prophet salam, the bigger problem that these prophets went through was because of this, because of certain attributes people showed right on the table. And those attributes were apparent, so we can tell what attributes Abu Jahl was showing, or the Romans were showing, or the Persians were showing, or as a group or as individuals, Abu Lahab was showing. And they're chieftains, they're decision makers, they're not just regular Joes. And those regular Joes were just listening to these people because the bigger shift was not happening for the Prophet ﷺ or any prophet. And if you look at the attributes of these, what these people were presenting as resistance to the bigger message, you can draw the reasons of why these attributes were used. So we can tell what Abu Lahab is doing, but can we tell of why is he doing it? There's not much that would be written there. And even if we can find a lot about Abu Lahab or Abu Jahl, but we cannot find a lot of reasons of what Nuh al-Islam's enemies were doing, or why, or Hud al-Islam's, or why. So what you do is you draw out the patterns of the people the Quran is talking about. And the Quran transcends out of those little civilization bubbles and goes through the history and teaches you the patterns of why people do whatever they do and why individuals do whatever they do. And you can draw out the map that, okay, there's a mental disposition of a group, and it keeps changing when you go up the hierarchy of the group. And this mental disposition is so common between certain people. That's why they call a group. So once you find out that mental disposition, you find out that probably is the only commonality between the group. So once you do the math on this, you find out unequivocally that these are the attributes and these are the common classes that we have right now, right here.
Sure.
So this never changed. This is so uncanny that whatever the problems Adam Islam's first filial generation was going through is what you and I are going through. And you see that same kind of resistance is going to come with the same kind of message. And not only the fact that they're going to use the same techniques, they're actually going to come up with the same models on runtime. So human beings never change behaviors. So in other words, I hate to burst your bubble right here in the beginning of the session, that this was one of those problems the prophets actually came down to solve. What you're saying is your purpose is one of the biggest problems of people who are trying to, get the world together, or not together, but together for a divine purpose. We're working for Akhirah. This is not gonna, this is all the recipe for getting people out of the Noah's Ark. You know what I'm saying? Literally, the Noah's Ark. You're pushing people out of Noah's Ark. Imagine that. What is the risk? Imagine the risk that you're taking if you're not drawing out the right purpose statement. Imagine that. So let me give you an example. If I use these words and put them in the same statement that you used, that you know what, you were given a privilege, and now you got to give back. So you're trying to create jobs for certain people. These words in this very order are used by people all over the world. So we need to put this into some flavor,
sure,
so that we can differentiate between you and any other guy who has nothing to do with your deeper values or goals, or that you gotta. So let's just say an atheist in England is literally using the same words, and he's very sincere to what people should get and whatever he can do for them, but he has absolutely no knowledge of the afterlife or God or faith or those spiritual needs people have, which he is supposed to give them while he's trying to get them together on this mission of his. So where do you draw the line between you and that guy? And what's the value of your purpose statement vis-a-vis all of these which are flying around with, and they are gonna, around every cluster of human beings?
That's a good way to put it, but the way I see the difference in my values and why I do what I do versus why he does what he does is simply because I know at the end of the day I have to answer to my God, and with the questions he'll ask me is, what did I do with all the power and influence I had?
So see, okay, you know what? We'll talk about this because I need a lot more data about why you think about certain things and the way you think about certain things before I can actually build up, because this is going to get real boring for a lot of people. But in one line, you're missing out on a lot of elements that construct this building of purpose, and you just, I'm afraid that you might just satisfy yourself that you're on a higher purpose, even though this does not have the constituents to make up that structure that should suffice for the deeper needs. When you use the word God, the equation changes altogether. Okay, then that means you need to give a lot more, in a lot more angles, from different angles, so that all of the needs of all of these people, the deeper needs of these people, are fulfilled while you're giving them sustenance. You know what I'm saying? Otherwise, you're creating Frankensteins. Who created Frankenstein? What's that character? Dracula.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. So Dracula creates Frankenstein. And what better model than to create another being which you're providing for from the first cell onwards? And your purpose versus Dracula's purpose is on paper the same. Actually, he's got a way better model because, you got those people. He actually made that being. So that's exactly what I need you to move out of, because if you give them this, then you're probably creating Frankensteins, because the rest of the world has given them most of what is going to get them towards the Frankenstein status. They were just missing out on the sustenance. You provide them the fuel. Now you're fueling Frankensteins. I mean, that's my claim against, this kind of, and that's what I wanted. That's where I wanted you to differ between you and Dracula's.
Yeah, no, I think that a lot of people would enjoy this, because we can really make this about, and I would love and appreciate your support on this, on how somebody creates their overarching purpose in this life. So I guess I'll just kind of put my cards on the table and tell you why I think the way I think, and you can tell me why this is a flawed way of thinking, and how young people like myself in their 20s, 18, 24, 25, need to reframe the way they think about the world and what their purpose in the world is. You think that's a good approach?
This is not an approach. This is a way of analyzing anything. What is approach to analyze the purpose?
Yes.
Oh, that's Well, you know what? You start with understanding the history of human beings.
Okay.
And, that starts pre-Adam al-Islam. And then, you see what happened, and especially with Adam al-Islam. And then the bigger events, the cataclysms around Nuh al-Islam and Hud al-Islam and Musa al-Islam and Ibrahim al-Islam most of all. Then you find out that, this is pretty much, we don't have much room to actually come up with a new purpose anyway. So, and plus this is a very tiny little lifespan that we have. And tinier is the planet that we're going to live in. Tinier meaning, the limited resources that we're going to get. The only thing that gives us enough of play is our mind and, and the kind of possibilities that we can do with, with our knowledge and the knowledge to come in and what human beings might be able to uncover when you look up and you see how tiny we are compared to whatever is out there. So other than that, we just have very limited options, and we're too few, and we're here for a very short span of time, and we got too many problems, disease and catastrophes and unforeseen events, and then this tribalism, this nationalism, which is tribalism, and fight and war and greed and jealousy, and all of this stuff comes together to create deeper problems on a level where you can't even start writing down purpose statements, let alone go closer to them and actually achieve some or even one of them. So what you do is you play safe, and you see what happened to Adam al-Islam.
Okay.
And you see that that's the first man on this planet, and he's having babies, and those are all his babies. So there's one tribe. There's no way to question the oneness of the tribe, and they're all for each other. That's ideal. That's like world peace, right there. So it's just the best start. So what kind of problems did he have? Or did he have any problems? Well, if he had problems, which he did, how do they come into the ideal system? And that gives you so much data about how to structure yourself as a man and as a unit of a family, because this is the definition of the family, which is being set right there. And all of a sudden this family starts to disassociate itself and starts to spread. In the time of Nuh alayhi salam, you see, even Idris alayhi salam actually, you see that this was not, this planet starts behaving differently all of a sudden. So much so that different realms start to open. So much so that they start interacting with each other. And so much so that they conflict with each other. And the problem's not just tenfold, but they're different kinds of problems. It's not the same problem, growing. It's different kinds of problems coming in. And all of a sudden, the game plan has started to change. From Adam al-Islam, all of a sudden Idris al-Islam has a different game plan, and weird things start happening, and overwhelming things which can't even be explained on the definitions we have of human beings. They just start happening, and by the time Nuh al-Islam is coming in, and if you're well read, you find out that this planet starts interacting with different realms, and this planet does not behave the way it has ever behaved before, or will ever behave till we're alive. Things never happen again the way they happened at the time of Nuh alayhi salam. So why did this happen? And all of a sudden, this man, Nuh alayhi salam, was faced with the biggest problem that was ever going to come in, and why? Why did it happen to him? Was it the time that he came in and this was a start of the same kind of problems that's going to bother everybody till the day of judgment? So we find enough hadith and find enough ayat and enough find evidence in the history that come together and coherently, and we find out that this was predestined, that this whole span is going to enter a certain point of no return, and certain new equations are going to start to pop up, and the formula is going to change of how to look at the problem, how to solve the problem, but the purpose is going to stay the same. So by the time our Prophet ﷺ comes in, he starts referring to Nuh alayhi salam all of a sudden, as if that's the first page of the book. And that gives us enough insight that things were different at Adam alayhi salam and Shis alayhi salam and Adis alayhi salam. Now things are going to be the same as Nuh alayhi salam. We got to draw out the purpose from Nuh alayhi salam onwards and see how consistently Ibrahim, Musa, Hud, Saleh, Isa, and everybody who came between the Prophet ﷺ and Nuh alayhi salam, they had the same kind of strategy to solve the kind of problems this planet has given them. And planet has never given more problems than it has to these prophets, alayhimus salam. So you have your manual right there, and you have your purpose statement coming, echoing 124,000 times. And it naturally begs the question that, okay, all of them combined want to turn back time into the time of Adam alayhi salam, the least, so that we can achieve that again. And our Prophet tells us that it is going to be achieved. When Isa alayhi salam is going to come back, he's going to turn back every single thing into the time of Adam alayhi salam. Yeah? And the Quran literally says that. He couples these two prophets together. That Isa is on the mithal of Adam alayhi salam. People start thinking that, oh, you know what, he didn't have a father, and Christians think he doesn't have a father, so he's God. And Quran is answering that, since Adam alayhi salam did not have a father, and Isa alayhi salam did not have a father, so since Adam, you cannot call or do not call Adam alayhi salam as God or son of God, so why are you calling Isa the son of God, right? That's not what the Quran is saying. This is not all of what Quran's message is. The Quran is saying that the time of Isa, this man is on the missile, on the same example, in the same line, same methodology, in the same time, similar. Everything is going to be similar to Isa alayhi salam, which was going on at the time of Adam alayhi salam. So when we couple this ayah with this hadith, you find out that the way it was in the beginning, it is going to be in the end. So that was the purpose. You can find it right there. It's an arch that just went down, and it's going to climb back up. Because this one man, Isa ibn Maryam, is going to pull everybody back up to the level of Adam alayhi salam's time. It's just right there in front of us. We just have to have the eyes to see it. And the Quran is saying it, the Hadith is saying it, the Torah is saying it, the Bible is saying it, the Quran is saying it. I mean, what else do we need? So, okay, we can put science into it, and we can find out. And so we can start from the pre-ice age to the ice age to the younger dryas, and see the cataclysm happening, and couple that with the divine knowledge, and see that it was round about that time. And these things might just have happened many times before. We are suffering from that kind of amnesia. We just don't want to remember this anymore. And the Quran actually connects all of these dislocated bubbles into this one thread that our knowledge structures can actually go back from Adam Islam, pull every piece of knowledge from wherever they left it, and start from right there. So we start from wherever Idris al-Islam left, from Nuh al-Islam left, from Hud al-Islam left, to Salih al-Islam, Musa al-Islam, to Isa al-Islam, wherever they left off. And then we do the math on what the Quran is saying for every one of us. Now, having said all of this, especially having said all of this in English, most of the people who oversee, especially in America and Canada, they're not equipped to handle this kind of statement. No knowledge. They're not. They're not even close. They're used to those mullahs and those sheikhs. They just do not have this angle. So people who are not going to get this, I don't blame you, and I don't blame your buzzing, ringing ears right now that this is too much. And this is too much effort to actually go into the understanding of how to actually do the math and putting a purpose statement. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save your time. I'm going to tell you that you don't have to make a purpose statement. You just have to replicate it. You just have to do whatever the Prophet ﷺ did. That's it. And why he did that. So the why chapter is given 124,000 times from Adam Islam to our Prophet Islam. But since you're not going to go into it and you're not trained into it, you just have it easy for you. You just have to, reproduce the kind of efforts that our Prophet ﷺ did. And you'll do just fine. Most of the people are not designed for higher cognitive faculties. They're not going to be questioned for it. I'm not saying that people are lower or higher. What I'm saying is people have different purposes.
They're tested based on what Allah has given them.
Well, they'll test it only on the one Quran, but they're going to be tested they'll be tested on the Quran. They will be moving through their own pathways. You just have to understand that thinking is not the job of every human being, but doing is the job of every human being. You got to do what you got to do, and the Quran is telling us what to do. It's also telling us, most of it is telling us how to think, but I know most people are not going to go in that, because that's tough. That's tough. I don't even remember the last time I slept during a night. I don't even remember. It takes time. It takes a toll on your relationships. It kills all of your personal relationships and all of whatever you wanted when you were 20 or 30. You got to let go of most of the things that you have in terms of, joy, of having those friends and people, and you're going to be distant from even your own self and distanced by your own people. So it's not an easy job. That's why most people don't do it. It doesn't take a smart man to think. It takes a lot of thinking to make a smart man. So it's a tough job. And just because it's tough, most people are not going to be thinkers. So let the thinkers do the thinking for you. You just have to just come together and start doing. That's it.
You mentioned something that I know is a very common...
One line summary, sorry. The purpose of Adam al-Islam and Isa al-Islam is the same. That should be your purpose statement. Go on, I'm sorry.
Good. So you mentioned the mullahs and the sheikhs, and you mentioned their way of thinking and their way of putting content out there.
They do not think.
Okay,
mullahs and sheikhs do not think.
Their lack of thinking. Their surface level knowledge on what the Quran is.
No, their knowledge could be deeper. They're not trained to think.
Okay, they're not thinkers.
Yeah.
We've established that. How does someone look at you and say, okay, he's right and they're wrong?
The Quran is going to tell us. People are not going to tell us.
But how? I don't. This is like genuinely for me, because I have a lot of
people
around.
So tell me, does the Quran not say that Isa is on the missile of Adam al-Islam? Is the same? It's literally the same ayah.
But I can interpret it in so many different
ways. Tell me any other interpretation of this ayah.
Of this specific ayah, I don't think I'm well equipped to interpret it. But if we talk about something where everybody knows, Inna ataynaka al-kawthar, fasalli li rabbika wanhar, inna shaniyaka huwal abtar. So indeed, your Lord has already granted you al-kawthar. So pray and sacrifice, and then indeed, your enemies are cut off. If I read this independently on my own, I could come up with anything for this. Like this is...
I'm not trying to tell you to interpret the Quran. I'm just telling you how to set a purpose statement.
No, I understand that, but it's just that statement you specifically made. I myself have a problem with it, because you're saying there is a lack of thinking when it comes to sheikhs and all of these people who are, self-proclaimed.
Most of the people do not think. It's not just the sheikhs. It's it's anyone from any realm that you revere. Most of the people are not going to think. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of toll. And it takes a lot of sacrifice. Do you think people are going to generate energy for that and leave everything else which they reserve their energy for? No, they're not. That's why I said selfishness is not going to yield selflessness.
Sure.
You said it is. No, it's not. So it takes a lot of sacrifice. You think people are going to sacrifice? No, they're not. It's against the very design of the individual. It's against biology. And what is it that thinkers have? Well, they have they have the right purpose statement, and it just divinely connects them with God, and they have enough faith to purposely destroy whatever dreams they were given as children by their folks. They have to dismantle every dream. It takes a lot of pain, blood, tears, to destroy the dreams given by your own father to you. It's not easy. Nobody can do it. That's why one in a million does it. To throw away the dreams that your daddy gave you? I'm sorry. No, it's not going to happen. It's mathematically not probable. It is possible. That's why some people do it. But it's highly improbable. That's why most people don't. And it's not just my opinion. You can trace down the history and see whether the proportion of thinkers rose up or went down or is steady. You'll find it steady. It's been there like this, the same proportion of thinkers, which is less than 1%, ever since we know history.
Hey guys, thank you for getting to the midpoint of this podcast. Listen, I really appreciate it. I appreciate you for giving us a chance to listen or watch this podcast. I've put a lot of effort into it, and I'm so happy to see people enjoying it. The reason why I'm doing this podcast is, number one, I love authentic storytelling, but the problem I see is every other podcast or show has the same guest coming over and over again. And I do think that defeats the purpose of authentic storytelling. So my guarantee to you is I will always bring on people with authentic stories, people who are relatable, and people who have lived these larger than life stories. And number two, I just need feedback from you guys. I need feedback on if I'm doing a good job, feedback on if I'm doing a bad job, feedback through the comments, through Instagram DMs. Anything will help me better my craft. I appreciate you guys for getting to the midpoint of this podcast, and I hope you enjoy the rest of it. Thank you.
Yeah, if I look at historically, I look at any famous
thinker,
so they lost everything. I mean, they barely had relationships.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the proportion of people who are thinkers and philosophers and trying to yield bigger solutions to the global community, they're less than 1 in a billion. And a lot of times, they're not even there in a lot of times when we read history. So they were crafted by a calamity, literally handcrafted by a calamity that human beings went through. And that calamity gave birth to that guy or a woman who rose up and gave the solution to everybody. So, again, it takes a lot of details to know what I'm talking about, but people who know that this proportion is not going to go more than a certain part of 1%.
So if, like you mentioned, if it's 1 in a billion, you have these thinkers who...
1 in a million.
1 in a million.
Yeah.
Let's say 1 in a million. I think it's probably more than 1 in a million, but...
It's not.
Let's say 1 in a million, statistically.
It's not.
The rest of the people, how do they live their lives? You said the purpose is look at the prophets. Specifically.
They'll look for a job, and people like you who have a purpose of giving them jobs are just going to get the job, and they're just going to live daily. As long as they have a job, they're happy. They don't have it, they're not going to be happy, and they're going to be looking for their next job.
And that next dopamine hit, and that next way to
it's provide
for their family.
No, it's not dopamine. It's deeper than dopamine. Dopamine is your wants. This is a need. They got to fill their stomach. It's not dopamine.
But with the wants, they
it's
can
ghrelin,
fill their needs,
actually.
Right? I mean, with the money, they can...
Ghrelin, that's the word.
Okay, fair.
Yeah, which is to feed. That's hunger, right? So people who... There'll come a time very soon that people will have enough affluence so that there will be no more poverty. Only then they'll realize that that was the biggest calamity that they... I mean, it's a... Let's just assume a planet where there's no more hunger.
Okay.
Then what? You think you're going to achieve, the doorway or stairway to God? You think we can do that?
That's just one problem.
No, that's the only problem. That's the only problem. So as soon as we're going to eliminate hunger, we are going to burn the stairway to God. That's my case.
And why do you say that?
Because I know how human design works and how it's constructed and how chemistry works and how human beings have behaved over the last 20, 30,000 years.
So you're saying if there was no hunger in the world, we would
burn the stairway to God. Jacob's ladder will be burnt. No more marriage.
Why do you think Muslims become consumers of ideas rather than producers of ideas?
Everybody is a consumer of ideas. It's not just Muslim. Muslim are a lower mental class and a lower capability class. So the lower the class is, the more you are a reproducer of things. The higher your class is, that's called a class, by the way, if you can come up with ideas. That's a mental class. High mental class comes up with ideas. And it's not just Muslims. You go to Africa, you see any kind of inventions going on in Africa? You think everyone African is a Muslim? No. So there are certain elements that construct this whole pillar on which there are scaffoldings, and the higher your scaffolding is, the more you're going to be. I mean, it's so ironic that the more you're going to have, the less you want to have it. So the higher you're going to go into a class, the less you would want to be in that and try and bring everybody up, and you're going to go down and help everybody up. And that's the design of the classes, mental classes. So let's just say you have, I mean, I just gave you an example of hunger, right? So if, I'm just going to answer your question.
But the hunger part I think is relevant to what we were talking about.
No, it's not.
If
you took it out of bounds. I was talking about I was talking chemistry, and you're talking biology. So it's okay. So Muslims are never going to be producers of thought, because most of the Muslims are at the lowest mental class in this 8 billion people worth of community. That's the problem.
Well, that's a pretty big statement to make.
It's a very simple thing to analyze. Why don't you just, if you break up the mental class, you'll find out most of the Muslims fit in the bottom of the barrel. And I'm not saying because of the fact that we're Muslims.
Of course not. Okay. It's the fact that we don't do
because of the fact. It is because of the fact we're not actually Muslims. That's the problem.
That brings me back to actually the first question I wasn't able to ask you, but what makes an actual or absolute Muslim?
You do whatever the Quran says, and there's not an or here, and you do. Okay, let me just flip it so that it's simple. Why is the understanding of what the Quran is telling us to do? You need to have this why and what to do.
Why and what?
To do what the Quran is saying, and you're going to shoot up in the heavens right there. All of it.
So an absolute Muslim is somebody who looks at the Quran and understands the why and what of why we do what we do. Or why we should do.
It does it as well.
Okay. Again, I really need an answer on this for myself.
I just gave you the two things, why to do and what to do. You got to have both of them simultaneously.
If I read the Quran alone at home, okay, I understand the translation, I understand what the scholars have explained on what these specific things mean, and I connect it to the narrations and the authentic hadiths, right? That's in front of me. Am I, as an individual, should I interpret those own things and incorporate them into my own life?
But you're using the word scholar and interpretation in the same sentence. How are you doing that?
Because if a scholar tells me what the interpretation of that verse...
So now you're not interpreting anything.
Sure, I read it, right? But I have my own personal interpretation based on my own narrative or bias. If I read something, I say this table is made out of wood.
Okay, listen, you're missing out on the basics here. There's this thing called the Usul.
Sure.
And there's this thing called the Istidlal. You are at liberty to do all the Istidlal yourself. You don't need scholars for that. But Usul is going to come from Allah and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No human being after the Prophet sallallahu has the right or the allowance to make Usul.
Okay.
Usul is done by Allah and the Prophet sallallahu. After that, everybody's going to do istidlal. Okay? Now, what most Muslims are doing is they're drawing the same istidlal because their daddies did it or their scholars did it. The scholars did it. They're replicating the same istidlal. That's called reproduction of thought. You understand me?
Yeah, and Allah warns us in the Quran, don't follow your forefathers. Just because they did something doesn't mean we should be doing it.
Yeah, but no. The Quran does this even better. Quran says, اتخذوا أحبارهم ورهبانهم أربابا من دون الله. They actually put their scholars as gods. That's what happens when you replicate the istidlal of the scholars and to treat it as the word of God. It's not the word of God. Why are you replicating the same istidlal? You got to do new istidlal. You were given a new problem. You have to use the same usul as from the Quran and the Prophet ﷺ, but you cannot replicate the istidlal. That dude did not have your problem. How is he going to be able to interpret? So, for example, we live in a nuclear time.
Sure.
Those problems that were, those deductions and derivations that human beings did, scholars did, they didn't even know this time.
Okay.
They didn't have these kind of problems. So, let me give you a simpler example. Ibn Taymiyyah was at the time when Muslims were in the political might. Okay. Hanbal was at the time when Muslims were in the political might. So was Abu Hanifa, so was Imam Malik. These are the five. Oh, so was Imam Jafar Sadiq.
Yes.
So there's 6 people who are predominantly calling the shots right now. They're not prophets.
So you're saying those are the scholars everybody follows.
So, that's why I use these 6. So, do you think Ibn Taymiyyah is a prophet?
Of course not.
So, the usul does not come from Ibn Taymiyyah or Imam Jafar Sadiq or Hanifa or Hanbal or Malik or Shafi'i. Usul comes from the Quran and the Prophet ﷺ. These people did not create usul, they created istidlal, the deduction. They deduced the solution of their own problem. Now, their problem was not our problem. At their time, Muslims were in the political might. They were the superpower calling the shots on the production of thought. Okay. Now, we are reproducing the thought of the non-Muslims because we are not politically in the kind of power that is required to call the shots on the thought process. So whatever you're thinking, I'm thinking is coming from Hollywood, if not directly from the Pentagon.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
100%.
So the fact that you are deducing the istidlal of Shafi'i, he was enjoying the Muslim powerhood. He did not have our problems. He couldn't even fathom that Muslims are going to go down into zero. We'll be replicating the Caucasian thought process based on whatever their belief in God is. Even if they didn't believe in God, they still have a thought process, right?
Yes.
And you're deducing that. That's like putting a B plus, a B positive blood type into an A positive patient.
And expecting it to just work.
Because it's red.
I like the analogy.
Yeah, that's literally what's going on right now. That's why we're reacting like little bunnies, hopping here and there.
Okay, so I agree with that point, and I think it makes perfect sense. Now, as a Muslim today, and as a Muslim who's trying to do the right thing, do I look at what those scholars have said and then reframe that into the specific problem I'm facing?
You got to read
right
the
now?
scholars so you know how to deduce things. Okay. The more scholars you're going to read, the higher your cognition is going to be of how to deduce things. So you get trained on the usul, you read the scholars, and then you read the contemporary. You read into the contemporary problems, understand their cause, and then you deduce your own solutions.
Understood. And I can do that independently, in your opinion?
Everybody has to do that independently. What do you mean we don't?
No, but there's for example, there is all the major scholars say that a woman needs to wear the hijab. or a woman should not beautify herself when she leaves the house. You're saying, but that was back in that time. That
What?
time and this time is very different.
Really? Did I say that?
No.
You actually believe I said that?
Said what?
This is, in the hierarchy, this is like a million steps down. This problem doesn't even exist in my books.
But it's the biggest problem the world faces today.
In your eyes, your world is a different world in your eyes.
Sure, I understand.
That's why I said most people don't think. You got to think yourself out.
See, I understand where you're
What do you
coming
think?
from.
Girls beautifying themselves is the problem right now?
I don't think it's a problem, but
You
that's
just
what...
said it's the biggest problem right now.
In the world, yes, that's what the world is arguing about.
What? Where?
In the West,
I thought the
specifically.
biggest problem in the world is the fact that Netanyahu just bombed 2 million,
Sure, that's a big problem, but not for
people
most
worth
people.
of countries.
That's only a problem for the people who are getting affected. The people sitting in Pakistan or the people sitting in all around the world don't care. They don't care. It's not a problem for them unless it happens to their mother or their
I
sister.
thought
or
your
themselves.
purpose was to keep them jobs, man.
Sure, that is my...
So that should be your primary problem because the fuel prices just, spike. People don't have money. They don't have jobs. And you know why? Because Netanyahu bombed Tehran. I mean, you're the person who's the first affectee of this problem.
Actually,
You're
no,
not even true to your own purpose. You know
I
what?
have-
And I understand that because you haven't really felt it. I mean, I know you're true to the letter of the purpose, but not the feel of it. Because you're not bleeding crimson and you're not sweating blood right now. Because this is like the biggest problem for any human being on the planet right now. Do you know the price on wheat and bread tripled in Scotland because of whatever happened in Tehran?
Yeah.
And you think this is not the biggest problem in the world? And girls not wearing hijab is the biggest problem. So people who are actually, involved in these kind of problems, scholars, they don't even understand the bigger aperture of things. That's why I said they're not thinkers. I mean, it's not even. I mean, you think it requires a big, deep philosophy or thinking capability to understand what's going on as the biggest problem right now? I mean, we're actually recording this session at the time America, the biggest proclaimed superpower, is bowing down to a Muslim group of people in Iran who do not have even 1% of the power, but they have choked the planet, literally choked them dry out of growing food or running any machine. Growing food or running any machine. They've choked them dry. So you do the math, and who would actually not call it the biggest problem? I'm not saying is it a bigger problem or not, or where's the debate? I'm saying what kind of a mental class would not call this? And why is that mental class, wherever it is, who is not trying to solve this problem?
I would
from
argue
the
that-
Quran, from the Quran.
I would argue that the masses don't see this as a problem. And can I give you an example?
I didn't talk about the mass. Why you keep talking about? I just told you, mass does not think.
Okay. I am somebody who's very passionate about the whole Palestine cause, and I am somebody who does anything and everything in my power to stand up for our brothers and sisters in Palestine or Iran, Lebanon, everywhere. Just let me make my point, okay? I see that as a very big problem. I see that as something that needs to be solved. I see that as Muslims, we need to stand up for them and we need to do whatever it is in our power to do it. That's point number one. But at the same time, when I was speaking about the specific hijab problem or the beautification problem, you're right. This is a problem that the scholars and the Maulvis and all of them are arguing about and fighting
No,
about.
I didn't say that. You said that.
I said that. Okay. You specifically did say that this is a problem that these guys are focused on. But
No, if you're saying what you're saying is true, then yeah.
okay, in Canada, for example, the biggest argument that's happening, especially in this whole Muslim world with scholars, with the Maulvis over there, in the mosques over there, the argument is that Muslim women should wear certain things or women should not wear certain things or women should not beautify themselves or put on perfume. I understand that to you that's a very low IQ thing, or maybe that to you...
No, I didn't say that.
But that's what you're making it sound like. You're basically
you're making
saying,
it sound like this because you're using certain words. I did not use those words. What I'm saying is, whoever thinks that this is the biggest problem has not developed himself in Islam yet.
Okay, we agree on that point. 100%. There are much bigger problems than that. I was making a point based on what people talk about. Okay, let's not talk about the people. From a worldwide view, yes, the biggest problem is the fact that there is the US bombing Iran and, killing people. And through that, the byproduct of that is petrol prices are going up. And obviously the byproduct of that is it's a chain effect. There's lots and lots of things that are going on in the world that are much bigger than the specific problem I spoke about. But I was taking an Islamic Muslim lens. For Muslims, that is what they're arguing about most of the day.
So you'd rather have a dead, hungry girl than an uncovered face of a girl?
I would much rather solve the problem in Palestine. I could not care less about the woman wearing hijab or beautifying themselves.
Why did you put it on the table then?
Because that is something that's everybody's... my job is to just bring you or bring forward things that everybody asks me or talks about in general.
That's not your job.
I see that as my job on this platform, to ask you questions people have.
No, that's not your job. Why are people calling the shots on your IQ?
It's not about people calling the shots.
This is literally what you just said.
It is an example I made. If somebody has specific questions, okay, let's say the masses have one specific question and they've asked these scholars or these Maulvis, like we spoke about, this specific question, and they don't have a thought out answer. They just say this is what was happening back in the day and this is what should be happening today. You made the point, which I really appreciate, that everything that was being discussed back then is not applicable today because there are different things going on in the world today. We can take what they've said, what the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, what the Quran said, and what the scholars interpreted from that, and we can apply it to our own lives. Independently, we can solve our own problems. That's how you've put it, and I think that's a beautiful way of putting it. But at the same time, I was just taking an example of what people are arguing about, and I'm saying that this is something that a lot of people are confused about. So how do we go about solving that specific problem? Yes, there are much bigger problems in the world.
Sorry, I lost you at people. I'm not talking about people. People are going to do whatever they're going to do. If we are in power, and the Quran is calling the shots through the people of power, then people are going to follow the Quran. If the people in power are not following the Quran, and they're following, let's just say, Book of Satan,
sure,
people are going to follow the Book of Satan. That's how the hierarchy works. That's called the low mental class. That's why I said, you asked me whether Muslims, why are Muslims just the reproducer of thought? They don't produce their own low mental class. It's a biological and chemical phenomenon. It's not something, we don't know. Everybody knows that. Whenever you're, doing any kind of analysis, you find out that, mass does not behave on its own. Mass only behaves on behalf of the intellectual thinking elite. That's why it's called mass. So you plan for those people who are designed to think, who have the higher IQ. You plan for raising the IQ of people. And that's why I started this session with you. Bring enough people and you start broadcasting enough message, their IQ is going to go up.
What's your overarching purpose?
Everybody's purpose should be what Adam al-Islam's purpose is, or Isa ibn Maryam's purpose is, or Prophet Islam's purpose is, to make sure that Muslims show the Quran from the pedestal of power to the people so that they can follow, because people are going to follow the power. So we got to put the Quran at the pedestal, create a pedestal of enough might so that people are naturally going to subconsciously and consciously, even unconsciously, following the Quran, because it has embedded in it the benefit of everybody. No one can object to this kind of system as a solution to every problem. And that was the purpose of Adam al-Islam till Isa ibn Maryam al-Islam. That's the only purpose. We don't have to come up with new purpose. I just told you the whole I gave you the reasoning of how to actually construct a purpose statement.
Yeah.
Girls and boys.
That's something I should definitely do.
Yeah, so the biggest problem Muslims are suffering from, that they're not coming together to, competently establish the pedestals of power and might, so that the Quran is implemented by everybody.
How do you think we should do that?
You have to go through my work. I've given a lot of hours, maybe 1,000 hours of, repeatedly of how to create those 4 pillars. Yeah, you have to create those 4 pillars of moral, mental, financial, and political capital. There's enough people having these 4 pillars coming together under these 4 pillars. You can do that just like the way every human group has done that before. But since we are doing it through the Quran, so we have to have that moral capital from the Quran.
There's a story, and just when you were saying this, actually it came up. There's a story of how when Abraham was, may Allah be pleased with him, his forefathers were, they were praising idols, and they made their idols into their gods.
Was his actual father, not forefather?
Sorry, his actual father, and the people around him were...
Yeah.
They had made their idols their gods. He obviously went in, he broke the gods, and there was a whole story. But can we see our existing life today similar to his in the form of we have our own idols that we need to break? So the phone being one of our idols, or our nafs being an idol, or the things around us being idols that we need to break? Because I think our lives are, I personally believe that our lives are driven by hedonism, like our feelings and our emotions and our lust kind of make decisions for us. We don't really have much power over the decisions we make anymore based on, the things we consume and the people we listen to and the content that's available out there.
So we'll have to do a lot of so I need to draw a diagram on how an idol is created by a human being. And that's a pretty long discussion, but we should. So people should know how we make our own idols and start worshipping them with such khushu'. Even though it's a very tough thing to understand, but it's the easiest thing to do. And Islam is the easiest thing to understand and the toughest thing to do. Okay. That's the difference between anything when you're as far as your nafs is concerned. Because nafs is going to go towards the easier path. So Islam is the easiest to understand because we can feel those problems which it is trying to solve. But very tough to implement and do, and that's why most people do not even go towards the tazkiyah. And that's just it for the individual. For the group, you need to have that system. But anything else other than Islam is very, very tough to understand. Very tough, actually. Most people won't even listen to what I have to say about how you make this idol. You yourself give birth to it. You nurture it. You raise it to a level where it becomes bigger than you, and you start worshipping it. Not just that, but you're willing to, and sometimes even die for it. You're going to make sure your kids worship that as well, and you're going to create a very big system around this. I mean, it's very tough to understand, but it's so ironic that the toughest thing to understand is the easiest thing to do. So easy that you don't need any knowledge for it. If anything, knowledge is against it. You don't need any hard work for it. If anything, laziness is one of those idols. You don't need any help from anybody. You're going to do it yourself. It's like learning a language, and you're going to look at people of idols, and you're going to create your own idol, and you know exactly how it's made. And the best part is you don't even know that you're making it and you're worshipping it. And as soon as someone is going to try and give you a reminder of how disgusting it is and how disgusting your idol is and how disgusting you are because of it, you're going to resent that person because there's such a beautiful ecosystem that people live into because of these idols. And nobody wants to break that inertia. And that inertia is so, it's so normal. And nobody wants to be abnormal. It's got no risk. Everyone's doing it, so you're not going to be the odd man out. And no one's going to scold you for it because everyone is doing it. And if you, for some reason, try to change this, you'll be ostracized, alienated, literally assassinated at times by your own people, regardless of whatever time you're going to be in the future as well. Current times, prime example is the current time. And any sane man defined by people is not going to take that risk.
It's very similar to the story of Isa, may Allah be pleased with him.
Every story of every prophet is literally the same in this context.
Actually, you're a good example of it, how they've kind of banned you on coming on TV because you speak about the things people don't want to speak about.
Let's go to the next question. As soon as you're going to direct anything towards me, I'm going to remind you of this blue tablet that you have.
Back to the Quran specifically, I've met quite a few different people who specifically say that in the Quran it doesn't mention that we have to pray 5 times a day. This is a conversation I'd like to have.
Why?
Because it's so, like, everything you're saying right now is challenging how I think and how I process things.
Okay, so...
And I love it. I think, and I appreciate the fact that you're doing it.
So you want to pray 5 times a day or not?
Of course, I would love to, because it's for me. It's not really...
So the fact that you want to pray and everybody's telling you it's a compulsion, why do you have a problem with it?
Because the Quran doesn't specifically say it.
Then you should be praying 7 times a day. Why are you talking about the number 5?
Because the Prophet, peace be upon him, prayed 5 times a day.
Oh, you know that already?
Of course.
So why are you talking about the Quran then?
The interpretation over here is that
Prophet people prayed more than 5 times a day.
He prayed all the whole night.
That's not what I said.
The Prophet, peace be upon him, prayed more than 5 times a day.
As a compulsion. 5 is for us, mere non-prophet mortals. For the prophets, it's a totally different matrix. So you start with 6 or 7 times a day, because it doesn't mention in the Quran that you have to pray 5 times, right? So why aren't you praying 7 times?
I obviously follow the narrations and the hadith.
No, that's not. No, you don't. Are you kidding me? You're the one who put the case. The Quran doesn't say 5 times. And as soon as I said, okay, let's just pray 7 times, you're like, no, you know what? The Quran says 5 times.
I specifically said that people say that it's not mentioned. I didn't say I don't pray 5 times a day. Of course I pray 5 times a day.
No. That's not. When you, okay. I lose you when you say people. Okay? That's the problem. You're not understanding my pattern here. If you're going to use the word people in any question, I'm not going to answer this.
But Salvi, what's the point of coming on this is why I asked you the question before we started. My question was, why do you get on all these podcasts? And you said it's because I want to get the message out there. This is specifically what you said.
To raise the IQ of people.
I understand that, but if I don't ask you questions of what people think, then how do you raise their IQ?
People are going to raise their IQ by not thinking the way they're thinking. You see the problem?
Sure, you're reverse engineering it.
No, that's not called reverse engineering. I'm just reversing it. I'm not reverse engineering it.
Okay, you're reversing it. Why do you think competence itself is a religious responsibility?
It's literally written in the Quran. Like, why would you think I came up with it? It's common sense as well. Why would you rather have a competent person in charge or an incompetent person in charge?
Of course I would have a competent person.
Ahsanu amala. Quran says ahsanu amala. The word is written in the Quran, excellence. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and plus it's common sense. I mean, why is that even a question?
Actually, the question was followed up by, what is excellence, ihsan, look like in careers or business or your everyday life?
It's not just career, it's not just business, but any kind of craft, any kind of engineering, any kind of science, any kind of art, whatever you're going to do. We are naturally demanding this. It's not something we come up with. It's in our. We're wired into it. We require ahsanu amala from people. We don't require anything less than that. So it's fi anfusana. It is within us. Go on.
So how can young Muslims pursue ambition without being consumed by materialism or status?
Now be consumed by materialism status, and you'll find out it's not gonna. What's the word you use in the question? How can we
pursue ambition?
Ambition. So this is too petty of an ambition, right? Rolls Royce, Bentleys, or Bugattis. That's not a statement of ambition. Those are just things. As soon as you're going to get them, you're going to be bored in, a matter of days, not even weeks.
Yeah.
So they're literally against ambition. So materialism is inversely proportional to ambition.
So you're saying they should pursue things that give them fulfillment instead of pursue things that give them gratification, or pursue things that give them
Those
some
are just
happiness.
words. I don't know the meaning of these words. Like fulfillment. I don't know what that means.
Fulfillment, as in if I do something good for somebody else, I feel like I've done the job that Allah's given me.
Well, that's for you. I do not know it. Everyone is going to go through the same cycle or feeling.
So you're saying you don't understand the word fulfillment, just like in.
I don't understand when you say it. I would understand if I say it.
What is your definition of
No,
fulfillment?
that would be for me. Everyone has a different definition of fulfillment. I want to know. How can I say? How are you going to be fulfilled?
I was making a general statement. So if they pursue things that give them fulfillment, whatever their respective fulfillment is,
Well,
that's
if
better.
you're looking for a fulfillment then of dopamine, you're going to be fulfilled by dopamine.
Okay.
So fulfillment is the wrong word here.
So why do many Muslims wait for institutions or scholars or governments, we actually touched on this, to fix all the problems in the world instead of fixing it themselves?
Because they're competence. They assume that they're competent. Grand assumption, though.
If from a very young age, and this actually you touched on this, like the daddy's dream for me, whatever my dad's dream was for me, or my parents put me through school, I went through a traditional route, I went to high school, went to college, went to university, and I've been told that this is a thought process I have to follow. And for 25 years at my age, I followed this one way of thinking. I've always been told that I have to listen to the scholars, or I've always been told that they are much more knowledgeable than I am. Don't you think it's a very big deal to just tell somebody like that okay, everything you've been told and everything you think of is the wrong way of thinking or the wrong approach?
But who said that?
You specifically said that the scholars or the people in
I
charge.
just said they're not thinkers. Most of the scholars are not thinkers.
But then how are they scholars if they're not thinkers? Don't you have to understand things on a very different level?
Hold on. You go to a hospital, most doctors are not going to be thinkers.
Of course not.
But they're going to be doctors. You can go and get help from those doctors or whatever field they're into.
But they're the best at what they do. That's why they're doctors.
In whatever they do, they're not the best at coming up with bigger solutions to bigger problems in medicine. They're not thinkers, they're doctors. Most engineers are not going to come up with machines. They're not thinkers, but they're going to be awesome engineers.
I understand the example.
Yeah.
So if you were, I don't know what you were like when you were 25, but let's say you were 24 or 25, what are the steps you would take to...
I was just like this when I was 25.
Really?
Yeah, I was writing, I was speaking. Different corridors altogether. 25, I was in Etobicoke.
You in Canada?
Yeah, I was living in Etobicoke, Albion and Islington.
Oh, okay.
coming back to Pakistan, I was 25th, 26th year. Yeah, so I was doing the same thing, literally, in a totally different scale. Yeah, 25th year of my life. I had 2 daughters.
MashaAllah.
And yeah, I was practically doing the same thing, man. Obviously different scales.
So what's your advice to the 25-year-old who wasn't doing what you
Read. Because most of the Muslims are not well read or read at all. They just have to believe whatever anyone has to say. You want to read so that you would know what the other person, how deep, what's the gravity of the words people are saying or speaking or instructing. So if you cannot understand the gravity of those words, you're not supposed to be saying anything. Just follow them then. Okay? Then you are a follower. If you want to lead, you gotta read and learn how things are done and how this one book I keep projecting is, how deep this book is. If you cannot understand that, then you are the problem. I mean, you haven't read engineering or medicine, then you're not my problem. But you haven't read the Quran, then you are the problem I'm trying to solve. So, more Muslims coming into scholarship, understanding things, reading things, the less the problem is for people who are trying to do big things.
I appreciate the way you've put things today, and one of my favorite quotes is, the most dangerous form of blindness is thinking that your perspective is the only reality, and you have really shown me a different way of thinking about things.
Yeah, well, you know what? I think we've... this is the first time I came out of my grammar. Well, not the first time, but very few times it happens that I came out of my own grammar, because it's an experiment I just did. And there is a very high probability that it's not going to go well.
That's okay.
Now, I did 3 things. One, I changed my grammar altogether. Then I twisted your questions into a topic where I wanted them to go into a bigger sense of history. And 3, I did not challenge the thinking of anyone who was going to listen, because I couldn't, because I've already done so much damage in the first 2. So these 3 things combined might just be able to produce some serious results, but the probability is too low, because this product that we just created is not for everybody. No one's going to want this. But we gotta have to unleash our flagship product somewhere, right? Even if people don't want it, it still needs to be declared. And so I declared it. Now, most people I should apologize to because of the choice of my grammar, because I did not choose the words which are... See, that's the problem with Muslims, because most Muslims are going to listen to this. They're not equipped to handle this change of avenue of thinking, because I did, as soon as I said Adam al-Islam, I challenged the very basis of how people think. And how they're not just think, how they're modeled into behaving. So let's assume that some Christians are going to listen to this, and some Jewish people are going to listen to this, and Muslims are going to listen to this. You're going to find better reactions in Christians and Jewish people than Muslims of this session.
The Muslims actually are right. Might even be offended by a few of the things you've said.
No, I don't think so. People who can get offended are not even going to get what I just said.
Sure, okay.
Okay. So, and plus, there's no offense intended. There is a demand that I intend that people should try and look up whatever I'm just saying from the Quran, starting from the Quran and then from the Islamic literature, because I'm not quoting anything. I'm not concocting any data based out of which I'm drawing some conclusion. I'm not. I'm actually very well aware of where my conclusions are coming from, and they're coming straight from the Quran. So it's a pretty simple thing when it comes down to, and some people are going to get it. So it is for them, I guess. But this experiment might work. Why I did this experiment is so that if this can work, and I'm going to keenly see the reviews of your session, wherever that you're going to release it, or wherever you're going to release it, so that we can see where they're at right now. Most of the people who are going to be latching onto our channels, they don't understand English, so they're not going to listen to it. I do not know what your channel's reach is and kind of traction that you guys get. But if it is large enough, then it might just work. It might just create that snowball effect. But there's a big chance that this is not going to affect anybody. Big chance. God forbid.
Let's not be pessimistic about it. I think this should challenge a few people.
No, it's not pessimism. I'm experimenting. Why would I be pessimistic about
You
it?
keep saying that there's a high chance that people I think people will. I think people
No,
will
it's called
understand.
pattern analysis. I'm just drawing patterns. It's nothing to do with optimism or pessimism. It's about introducing a new product in the market and trying to understand that this is the product because people don't ask for this. If you're coming up with a product people didn't even ask for, and you become the innovator of technology, you're taking a big risk, and you need to run the analysis on how probable this is. I mean, it is to come up with this product and still make it. I don't think this product. I'm assuming this podcast is not going to make it. But then, that's the job, right? That's the job. I've totally come out of my grammar. I don't speak like this. I don't pause like this. I do not construct statements like these. I did this as an experiment, trying to see how it works. And it's not just the grammar. It's the topic it's the category of thought, not the topic, that I've unshelved, put it right on the table. So let's see how it goes.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me, sir. Thank you.